A vacation gone wrong. After 2 years of non-stop work, my wife and I finally took the dream vacation we'd been saving for 3 glorious weeks in Thailand. Sun, beaches, elephant sanctuaries, everything was perfect. I left my home in the peaceful Oakwood community under the impression that nothing could possibly go wrong. I even told the HOA president, Karen Miller, that we'd be away and had arranged for my brother to check on the property weekly. Karen was always too involved. She was the kind of woman who knew every car, every visitor, and every trash can that went out a few minutes late. Her sense of authority came with a superiority complex. I'd had a few run-ins with her before, but I figured a few weeks away couldn't hurt. Midway through the trip, while sipping coconut water by the beach, I got a strange call from my brother. "Dude, there's a for sale sign in front of your house," he said, sounding confused. I thought it was a joke. Probably Karen being nosy again, I laughed. But when he sent a photo, there it was, a huge red sign with my address. My stomach dropped. I immediately tried calling Karen, but she didn't answer. My brother checked with the local real estate office, and that's when things spiraled out of control. Someone had listed my house under the HOA's authority, claiming I'd moved out and given permission to sell. Even worse, a couple had already made a down payment. I called the police department back home, but they said since I was out of the country, I'd need to verify ownership in person. My heart pounded. My own home, my sanctuary, was being sold behind my back. I called my wife, who was at the hotel spa, and when I told her what happened, she nearly screamed. We rushed to change our flights and cut the vacation short. Every minute that passed felt like an hour. When we finally landed back in the States, I drove straight from the airport to my house, and what I saw made my blood boil. New people were moving furniture inside. My key didn't even work anymore. The locks had been changed. Karen was standing on the lawn, arms crossed, that smug smirk on her face. "You were gone too long," she said. The HOA decided it was time for a change. That was the moment I realized this wasn't just an HOA power trip. It was fraud, and Karen had gone way too far. The confrontation and police report. I stood there, jet-lagged and furious, staring at Karen while strangers moved into my home. My wife grabbed my arm, whispering, "Call the police, now." But I wanted answers first. "What the hell did you do, Karen?" I shouted. "That's my house. You had no right to touch it." Karen didn't even flinch. "Actually," she said in her smug, condescending tone, "the HOA board determined your property was abandoned. It's been unkempt for weeks, and as per Section 9B of our bylaws, the HOA can reclaim and reassign any neglected property." "Neglected?" I barked. "I was on vacation. My brother checked the place every week. You knew that." Karen rolled her eyes. "Your brother's word doesn't count as official notice. You didn't file a formal travel notice with the HOA, so the property was considered forfeited." I almost laughed in disbelief. She was quoting HOA bylaws as if that gave her the right to sell someone's house. The new couple looked uncomfortable, clearly realizing something was very wrong. That's when a police car rolled up. Thank God. My brother had called them after I left the airport. 2 officers stepped out, and I wasted no time explaining everything. The trip, the phone calls, the fake listing, and Karen's fraudulent claim. I handed them my ID and the deed to my property, which I always kept copies of in my car's glove box. Karen tried to interrupt. "Officers, this man abandoned the home and the HOA board." One of the officers, Officer Ramirez, cut her off sharply. "Ma'am, the sale of a private residence without the owner's consent is a serious crime. We'll need to verify this with county records." They made a few calls, and within minutes it was clear the house was legally mine. The sale paperwork Karen had filed used forged signatures and a fake notary stamp. She'd gone as far as creating an HOA, emergency resolution, to justify her actions. When the truth hit her, Karen's confident expression started to crack. "This is ridiculous," she muttered, but her voice trembled. The officer looked at her sternly. "Ma'am, you're being detained for questioning regarding property fraud and forgery." As they escorted her toward the patrol car, Karen snapped, "You'll regret this. I was just following protocol." I watched as they drove off, feeling both relieved and angry. My home had been violated, my privacy shattered, and this wasn't over. The couple who'd unknowingly bought the house apologized profusely, but they were victims too. The nightmare wasn't finished yet, because even though Karen was in custody, the HOA board was about to close ranks and defend her, and I was ready to fight them all. HOA tries to cover it up. The morning after Karen's arrest, I woke up to a flood of emails and messages from my neighbors. Word had spread fast through the Oakwood community. HOA Karen had been taken away in handcuffs. Some cheered, others were nervous, and a few, mostly HOA board members, were furious at me. By noon, I got a formal notice taped to my front gate. The Oakwood Homeowners Association requests your presence at an emergency board meeting to discuss recent events and potential violations of community conduct. I knew exactly what that meant. They were going to circle the wagons and protect Karen. When I arrived at the community center, the entire board sat at the long table, glaring at me. Vice President Linda, who always acted like Karen's shadow, cleared her throat. "We understand emotions are high," she began, "but you had no right to involve the police before consulting the HOA board." I almost laughed. "Consult you?" While Karen was selling my house, Linda kept her fake calm tone. "Karen's actions were based on the information she had. She believed your property was abandoned. The HOA acted in the community's best interest." I slammed a folder down on the table. Inside were the police reports, screenshots of the fake real estate listing, and the county verification proving I was the rightful owner. "That's forgery," I said. Karen broke the law, and anyone who helped her could be next. For a moment, no one spoke. Then one of the quieter members, an older man named George, muttered, "I told you this would go too far." Linda shot him a warning look. They tried to spin the narrative, claiming Karen had acted independently and that the HOA had no prior knowledge of the sale. But the truth was leaking. I had emails showing Karen discussing the reassignment of properties with board members weeks before I left for Thailand. The officers investigating the case had already requested HOA meeting, minutes and internal correspondence. Once they saw those, I knew it wouldn't just be Karen going down. Later that day, as I was replacing the locks Karen had changed, a few neighbors came by. "We're with you," one whispered. "She bullied everyone for years. It's about time someone stood up to her." But the HOA wasn't done fighting. The next morning, I got served with a defamation complaint from the HOA itself. They were suing me for damaging the association's reputation. My wife stared at the papers in disbelief. "They're really doubling down on this?" she said. I nodded. If they want a fight, they've got one. I had one final plan, to expose everything publicly. And I knew just how to do it. The public exposure and Karen's final arrest. The defamation lawsuit from the HOA was the last straw. They were trying to intimidate me, hoping I'd back off. But instead it fueled me. I wasn't just going to clear my name. I was going to take the entire corrupt board down with Karen. My first move was simple, transparency. I gathered every document I had. The fake sale listing, HOA emails, meeting notes, and even security camera footage from my neighbor's doorbell that showed Karen entering my property while I was in Thailand. My brother and I compiled everything into a detailed report and sent it to the local news station. Within 48 hours, the story hit every TV screen and social media feed in our county. HOA president arrested for illegally selling homeowners' property. The interviews rolled in. I shared everything, how she'd abused her power, forged signatures, and even manipulated HOA bylaws to justify her actions. The footage of Karen smugly claiming abandonment while the real owners were on vacation went viral overnight. Suddenly, neighbors who had once feared her came forward with their own stories. Fines without proof, threats, and unauthorized property inspections. It wasn't just me. She'd been terrorizing the whole neighborhood for years. The police reopened their investigation, this time targeting the entire HOA board. Forensic analysts discovered that 3 other homes had been listed the same way, abandoned and sold for quick cash. The money trail led straight to a hidden bank account under Karen's name, with kickbacks to 2 other board members. When the officers arrived to arrest Karen again, she was already out on bail. Cameras caught her shouting at reporters as she was handcuffed on her front. Loan for real estate fraud, forgery, embezzlement, and conspiracy. Linda and 1 other board member were also taken into custody. The rest of the board resigned overnight. The community voted to dissolve the HOA entirely, and for the first time in years, Oakwood finally felt peaceful. A few weeks later, my wife and I stood in front of our home again. The for sale sign was gone, the locks were ours, and the neighborhood was quiet. The same couple who had unknowingly tried to buy our home stopped by with flowers and an apology note. We invited them in for coffee. "This house," I told my wife, smiling for the first time in months, "is never going anywhere again." As the sun set, I watched from the porch where it all began. The nightmare was over. Karen's reign of control was finished, and justice had finally caught up with her. For the first time in a long time, Oakwood truly felt like home,